Hello class, welcome to our lesson today dealing with section 5.4. This is going to piggyback on what we dealt with in section 5.3 about solving proportions. So the beginning of this lesson should be fairly similar. The second half of the lesson though has a few things that we want to make sure are clear. So we're going to go through all of those things today and make sure we're on the right track. First thing that I want you to look at here is dealing with unit rates. So take a moment and plug them in real quick and find the unit rates to these questions. Remember, a unit rate has a denominator of 1, so essentially what you should be looking at is taking the amount of students, in this case number 1, divided by the number of buses, and that will get you to find how many students per bus there are. And so you want to be able to do that and then make sure your label is whatever the units are in the question. So for example, number 3 would be pages per hour. Okay, when looking at these 6 questions, all of these worked out to be nice whole numbers, but realize that unit rates don't have to work that way. They can have, for example, this could be 340.1 miles per hour, and that's okay when you're looking at any of those scenarios. Remember, you could write this as over one of something or per one of those things, and either way would find the unit rate. All right, the first group of proportion questions, what I'm going to do is try to show two different ways of solving. I personally think it's probably better that everyone knows the right side, which is cross multiplication. The left side works well. The question on the left works well if it's an easy question, but once you get into more complicated questions, cross multiplying is going to be the route of choice. So everyone needs to be able to know how to do that. But just so we can see how different ways are solved to be able to solve these types of questions. One way is to find a relationship between the vertical or horizontal pieces or components. So 9 times 3 is 27, so 5 times 3 is 15. This one here, you can't cross simplify, so don't try to take 12 and 15 and simplify them because there's an equal sign between them. And then you just cross multiply it. 15 times 12 is 180, and then I'm going to get a by itself by divided by 10. Essentially, when you cross multiply and you do that idea, you're going to make a one-step equation to be able to solve, and a is 18. Next one, 17 and 3. So 3 times 3 is 9. 17 times 3 is 51. Remember, 51 is not a prime number. 51 has numbers that go into it. The second one, 8 times 7 is 56. 10 times x is 10x. So I'm just going to cross multiply and then divide by 10. And I get 5.6. Everyone needs to be able to show their work like this as we kind of move forward. So make sure you know how to do that regardless of what method you use. Everyone needs to at least know how to do the cross multiplication method. Okay, let's take a few moments and let's try these 6 questions out. I'm going to kind of take myself off the screen for a little bit. I would like you to try these and make sure you know what you're looking at when it comes to these 6 questions. Okay, hopefully you were able to get a few of these questions figured out. Remember, everyone needs to know how to do cross multiplication at least. There's other methods that will work. Here are the 6 answers to these questions. Just make sure that you understand that you can multiply horizontally like this. So 4 and 12 have a times 3 or divide by 3 that go with it. You could also go vertically. So like this, for example, 11 times 2 is 22. That would work. And then also make sure you know how to cross multiply. Okay, this table here, when you have a table, you can just set up a proportion. So it'd be 3 bracelets for every 48 inches equals x over 80. You could simplify 3 over 18 down to a unit rate if you wanted. Otherwise, you can just cross multiply it and you should end up with an answer of x equals 5. So 80 times 3, excuse me, is 240 equals 48x, and then you solve for x by dividing by 48 on both sides. All right, now let's go through a few things that are a little bit more in-depth and take a little bit more work. The rules are still the same, it's just it looks a little bit different. So here you'll notice that there's not just x, it's 2x. Well, it doesn't change anything, just still cross multiply it. So that would be 15 times 2x. So 15 times 2x equals 9 times 5. 9 times 5 is 45. And then here, because of the associative properties, you can multiply in whatever order you choose. So for example, I could take 2 times 15 first and then set that equal to 45. And then when I try to get x by itself, I'm going to divide by 30 on the left side and divide by 30 on the right, and I get 1.5 or 1.5 as my final answer. But really the rules don't change. You do cross multiplying to make it look like something you've already seen before and then solve the proportion that way. Okay, the next one, same thing. Excuse me, 4 times 14 is 56. 8 times k plus 3. Now notice k plus 3 is in parentheses here. This should look like a distributing idea. You could also divide the 8 out right away. I am assuming that most of you are going to distribute, so that's the work that I had shown here. So that'd be 8k plus 24. And then from this spot right here in the middle is just a two-step equation. Get rid of plus 24 by minus 24, get rid of times 8, divide by 8, and you get k equals 4. This is the work that we're looking for, okay, in this situation. So if you have a question like this and it says to show your work, the expectation is that you're going to show your cross multiplication in these questions and your two-step equation approach rather than just the answer. So keep those things in mind as you keep moving forward in the class in how to solve some of these things. All right, this information is just an old iStep reference page with unit conversions. My suggestion is you get a quick picture of this or find one online and take a picture. You'll notice the first group is customary system, the second group is metric, and the third is between the two. Okay, so we can have a debate for another time why there's two different systems and is one better than the other, or maybe you have an opinion on that and you want to talk about it, that's fine. But we can get into that debate a different day. The reality is there's two systems that we have to use and they don't correlate very well, which is why their conversions here on the far right aren't very nice conversions. So that's something to think about as you look at those scenarios. We're going to use that to help answer some things on this next page. And again, I'm introducing the idea of unit analysis because you're going to see it in your science classes, so I want to keep introducing that to make sure you know what you're looking at. Okay, this first one says 2.5 feet. So in unit analysis, we put that number over 1. Okay, so 2.5 feet over 1. And then we say, well, what unit conversion is there between inches and feet? And it's 12 inches for every 1 foot. And I put the 1 feet on the bottom, okay, or 1 foot on the bottom, excuse me, because I want to cancel the units out of feet and feet. Okay, and that would cause these units to cancel, and you're left with just the inches, and 2.5 times 12 is 30. Now I know, and you know, that you could probably find that by just finding times 12 to find that answer. Okay, but the unit conversion idea will be helpful as we look maybe at some later questions. Another way to solve things, as long as there's only one conversion, is using a proportion. Okay, so 220 millimeters over x centimeters, I didn't know this was 22 yet necessarily, is the same as 10 millimeters for every 1 centimeter. And then you could cross multiply or know it's divided by 10. There's lots of ways to find that. Okay, but that gives you another option to be able to solve and get x equals 22. Here's where unit conversions become helpful. Okay, 2 liters, okay, we're trying to get it to quarts. So every 1 liter is the same as 0.264 gallons. So I put liters and liters catty corners so they cancel the units out. But then I need to get from gallons to quarts, so I put 1 gallon for every 4 quarts and put that catty corner. And then it's strictly just a multiply question. Okay, so 2 times 0.264 times 4 gives me that answer. And there's not a whole lot of guesswork involved. A lot of times students say, oh, I multiplied and I should have divided there, or oh, vice versa. Okay, when I'm looking at these questions, this idea of unit analysis could really help you keep organized. And again, this is an intro to some of these things, but let's start trying to look at those in a way that could be helpful. The last one's not going to be very good either. I mean, similar to this first one, you went from metric to customary. This one's going from customary to metric. 7.5 inches over X centimeters, I can set this up as a proportion, would equal 1 inch over 2.54 centimeters. Cross multiply and still find the answer. It'll do the same thing, and you'll get 19.05. You could also do this unit conversion idea in order to find that answer. Okay, one application question. This is the number of miles driven and what the toll is for a situation. Okay, so you notice it says your toll was $7.50. That would correlate to a Y value of 750, which is this spot right here. And that's 100 miles. The problem is they say how many kilometers is that? So 100 miles over 1, and then 1 mile is 2.609 kilometers. Now that conversion may be a little bit different on your application or your reference page, as long as this is close, because these conversions sometimes from metric to customary are rounded differently depending on what resource you're using. So that's okay. But the key with dimensional analysis like this, unit analysis, is that the miles and miles need to be catty corners, so these 2 miles would cancel, and that's 100 times 1.609, and that equals the 160.9 kilometers. Okay, your homework looks like a lot of questions, but there are a lot of just proportions and cross multiplying and solving. You have questions 1 through 9, 11 through 33 the odds, and then 39 through 43 all. Make sure you show your work on all questions, especially those cross multiplying pieces. Not just write the answer. That's not helpful to teachers to make sure you know what they're looking at. So please make sure that you show your work on all of those scenarios. Have a good day, everyone.